Hey everyone, it's Jananie and welcome back to my channel, This Story Ain't Over. So with December here and the holidays approaching, I thought it would be a great idea to bring you a bookworm's gift guide today. So I'm going to be recommending a few titles for every genre that I can think of, from YA fantasy to adult historical fiction, that you can get as a gift for the bookworm in your life, for the person who doesn't really read that much in your life. Regardless of who it is, you can grab one of these books as a gift for someone you know in your life for the holidays. I think giving books is a great gift. It's something that, enriches their life, that they can spend time with, that they can cherish for many years to come. And it's just a great way to get people to join in on a hobby that you love as well. I absolutely love getting books as gifts personally, so I always encourage people to do it as well. And I'll be timestamping this video so you can skip to whichever genre that you're looking to get a recommendation for. A lot of these I've mentioned before on my channel, but if you're looking for one that's specifically good for gifting, or one that's pretty recently come out that you can get as a gift, or one that's like recently completed as a series that you can get as a gift, then this video is perfect for you. But before we get into the recommendations, I wanted to talk a little bit about the sponsor of today's video, which is Ana Luisa. So I've worked with Ana Luisa many times before, as you guys may remember. I'm a VIP creator for them, and they are a wonderful, sustainable jewelry brand that I absolutely love, and their pieces have become a staple part of all of my outfits these days. And they are also the perfect thing to be gifting to someone for the holidays. So if you know anyone in your life who wears jewelry, I think getting them a Ana Luisa piece is the perfect idea for the holidays. They are long-lasting, really beautiful pieces that I'm sure someone will cherish for many years to come. One thing I love about Ana Luisa is that they are super sustainable and they are carbon neutral. They offset 100% of their carbon emissions from the sourcing of their raw materials to the disposal of their products. They also do limited batches for their pieces, ensuring the highest production value while also eliminating excessive waste. And of course, Ana Luisa is really great because their jewelry has no luxury markup. All of their pieces start at $39, which I think is pretty affordable for really nice, long-lasting jewelry. And of course, as usual, Ana Luisa always has some really great deals going on, and they have some sales up to 25% off at the moment, and you can be grabbing the perfect gift for someone in your life, including some of the pieces that I'm wearing today. So I absolutely love their jewelry, as I've said it many times before, but I really particularly love the ones that I have today. So the rings I'm wearing, I've mentioned before, so I'm not going to talk about them a lot, but today I'm wearing a necklace and then a couple pairs of earrings as well. So on my second piercing here, I'm wearing the Cassie earrings, which are these 14K gold little earrings with the nice cubic zirconia jewel at the front, and then it loops back behind my ear as well. So you actually put it in and loop it through your piercing. And it looks super cute on my second piercing, and I love how it just adds to the overall look. And then on my main piercing, I have these Elise double hoops. So they're like a little hoop, and then they've got the little jewels just sort of dropping from it. And this is the double. There is a shorter version that is just the Elise, but I just love how dangly these look and how cute they look for the holidays. And then to match the Elise double, I also grabbed the Elise pendant, and it's just a really, really dainty, beautiful, nice chain with a small little pendant. And it's again cubic zirconia, so it looks adorable. It just like matches the sort of wintry vibe I'm going for, which I love. So yeah, as I said, I love Ana Luisa, and you guys should definitely go check them out. Grab a gift for someone in your life who wears jewelry, or something for yourself. They have sales up to 25% off going on right now. Okay, so I'm gonna go through all of the different genres in YA first, and then I'll go through them in adult. Some genres I don't go into for both categories because there just aren't any that I can think of. But regardless, we're gonna start with some YA fantasy. So one of my favorite duologies series to recommend as a gift for anyone looking to read a YA fantasy is, of course, the Strange the Dreamer duology. So the first book, Strange the Dreamer, and then the second book, Muse of Nightmares. The reason I like to recommend these ones, they're by Laini Taylor, is because they are just so beautifully written and some of the best YA fantasy I've ever read. If you are trying to convince someone that YA is amazing, this is a great series to do it with because it is beautifully written. As I said, it is like so richly imagined, and it honestly just fills you with wonder and excitement and just wintry holiday feelings of magic and hope and that kind of thing. So yeah, I absolutely love this series. Basically, it follows our main character, Laszlo Strange, who is a war orphan in this fantasy world, and he's become a librarian in his small little town and has grown up on these stories of this lost city called Weep. But Weep isn't actually the city's name, it's just a placeholder name when its actual name was taken away by magic. And so he has been sort of obsessed with this place, but no one knows where it is or what happened to it until a delegation from that city arrives in his town asking for experts on various subjects to come with them back to the city to solve a problem in their city. And so of course Laszlo jumps at the opportunity and heads off to the city of his dreams, where he also meets the other main character and other POV character named Sarai. And there's a beautiful romance to this as well, and just overall some really, really interesting aspects to the story that delve into war and the consequences of war, and just some really, really interesting magical powers as well and magical beings. So if you're looking for a really intricate fantasy and one that's beautifully imagined, this series is great. I'm gonna try my hardest not to go too in depth into each of these books so that this video isn't 80 years long, but we'll see how this goes. The next sort of series, YA fantasy series that I want to recommend is, of course, the Ember and the Ashes Quartet, one of my all-time favorite series, an awesome sort of Game of Thrones-esque series if you're looking for one, if you know someone who really enjoys that type of fantasy, ones that are really cutthroat, that have really tragic and intense consequences. This is the series for you and for them. It starts with our first book, An Ember in the Ashes, second book, A Torch Against the Night, third book, A Reaper at the Gates, and the final book that came out last year, A Sky Beyond the Storm. This is probably my favorite YA fantasy series just because I absolutely love the characters and how resilient they are and the character growth that they go through over the 4 books. So if you're looking for a YA fantasy series to binge or to like gift someone as like a box set to binge during the holidays, this is definitely the one to gift. Another YA fantasy series that I can't go without mentioning is The Gilded Wolves trilogy by Roshani Chokshi. This actually recently finished and completed as a trilogy with The Bronze Beast. The first book is The Gilded Wolves, the second book is The Silvered Serpents, and then the third one is The Bronze Beast, which, as I said, just came out. This is a really great series if you're looking for a YA fantasy that is set in our real world, but with magical elements to it. This is actually a historical fantasy, I would say. It is set in the 1800s, and it follows a diverse cast of characters as well from different countries and sort of walks of life. And the magic in this series is quite cool. It's called foraging, and it involves sort of like imbuing objects and things with magic. And it also connects to a major theme in the series as well, which is colonization and sort of the effects on that on like people of color in the series. And many of the main characters are people of color and have been affected in very significant ways because of that. This one's also really cool if you're looking for like a little bit of travel in your YA fantasy, because the first book is set in Paris, the second one is set in Russia, and then the third one is set in Venice, Italy. So there's a bit of a fun aspect where you're going to different locations in the world, and I absolutely love the series. Really wonderful characters. If you're looking for a series that is slightly similar to Six of Crows, this is a good one. If you're looking for a large cast of characters to fall in love with, this is also a great one. And I will also tell you that the ending of the last book totally destroyed me, so do with that what you will. But yeah, overall it's a fantastic series, and I'm so glad that it's now completed, because now I can just like shove it at everyone to be like, it's done now. You can go binge the entire thing and not tell me you won't read it because the last book isn't out yet. So here we are. Okay, I'm honestly gonna stop describing each book as much because this video is gonna get way too long. But next, let's get into some YA contemporaries that you can gift to someone or grab for yourself. So the first one is An Emotion of Great Delight by Tara Mafi. This is her new contemporary that I absolutely loved to pieces. This is definitely not for everyone, but it's a great one if you know a sad teen in your life, if you know someone who's going through a rough time, if you know someone who enjoys really deeply emotional stories. This is definitely the one to grab for them. It is very short as well, so it also works for someone who doesn't like long books and wants a really quick read. This one is great for that because it's like less than 300 pages, packs a punch, and it's such a beautifully written book as well, so there's also that going for it. Basically, this follows our main character, Shadi, who is going through really tumultuous time in her life. She's recently lost her brother, she's going through a friend breakup, and there's a little bit of a romance to this as well, but she's also got a complicated relationship with her family going on, and she's just like crumbling under the pressure of everything. And it follows her emotional journey as she is working through all of those things. The next book that I have is Yoke by Mary H.K. Choi, which is probably probably my favorite YA contemporary of the year. And the reason is that it is so well written and also super, super relatable if you've ever been unsure of what you're doing with your life. This book involves a really strong sister relationship as well. So if you know anyone who has like a sister or like a really strong relationship with their sibling or a not so strong relationship with their sibling, this is a great one to gift because the relationship of the two sisters is so complicated, but it like really becomes super strong by the end, which I just absolutely loved seeing. Basically, the book follows our two main characters, June and Jane, but it is told from the perspective of Jane, who is the younger sister, and she is in college right now and has had a really complicated relationship with her sister ever since her sister moved out and got a job and all of that. And Jane is sort of going through her own issues. She has a eating disorder that she is sort of aware of and not aware of throughout the book. So that is also a, content warning you should be aware of if you're grabbing this for someone who it may be triggering for. But when June is diagnosed with cancer, Jane has to sort of confront her feelings about her sister and show up for her in a way that she hasn't had to before. And the two of them have to deal with each other in a very significant way, which just strengthens their bond, I think. And just seeing their own respective like issues that they're dealing with going on and their relationship sort of grow and change was just really beautiful to see. And it's also just like written in a very like straightforward and blunt way because that's the way that Jane's character is. So overall, a fantastic book if you're looking for a like YA contemporary that packs a punch that has some really significant relationships. All right, and then the last YA contemporary that I want to tell you about is Charming as a Verb by Ben Philippe. And the reason I wanted to recommend this one is because it is perfect for the teenager in your life who feels like they have all this pressure to get into a good university and who is finishing high school and doesn't know what to do with their life, that sort of thing. This is the perfect book for them. It really invokes that vibe of being in the last year of high school and trying to figure out what to do with your life and dealing with like university applications and all that. But basically this book follows our main character Halty, who is a bit of a hustler and a bit of a charming guy who knows how to get what he wants. He has this burning ambition to get into Columbia University and he's always been sort of working towards that goal. But Halty has a tendency to be less than honest in many different ways, and when his less than honest dog walking scheme gets discovered by a classmate at his school, she sort of blackmails him into helping her find a way to be more popular at school because he is very popular and she is very sort of introverted and only knows how to do school. And it sort of becomes this she's all that situation, but it's a lot more focused on Halty's personal journey and trying to figure out what he actually wants to do and if he's really just doing things for the sake of his parents' expectations or if he really wants something. And it overall just really invokes that like being in high school feeling. So I feel like it's the perfect book to gift to a teenager in your life. All right, next, if you're looking to gift something to the queer teenager in your life, I would highly recommend Honey and Issues Guide to Fake Dating by Adiba Jagirdar, or Ace of Spades by Farida Abike Iamide. Either of these is also great just to grab if you are looking for queer fiction as well. But the reason I say these two for the queer kid or teenager in your life is because Honey and Issues Guide to Fake Dating is awesome because it follows two South Asian girls whose families have varying degrees of being accepting of their sexuality, and it involves a fake dating relationship between these two girls, which is just adorable, and the way they fall in love is super cute as well. But I think this one is great to gift to a queer teen who feels a little bit alone in their life and how they're feeling about their situation, and it's just super, super cute. So it's like a bit of a pick-me-up as well. And then the reason I would recommend Ace of Spades is because it is mostly actually a YA thriller, and the thriller aspects are really great, and like the discussion of race and privilege and all of that is super, super interesting. But it's also got the added aspect of the two main characters both being in non-hetero relationships, which I found really interesting and also just like a nice aspect to the overall story. All right, next I have some YA sci-fi to recommend. So the first is a duology that I discovered this year and absolutely am in love with. I'm on the second book right now, but really enjoying it. So that's the Goddess and the Machine duology by Laura Beth Johnson. So the first book is called Goddess and the Machine, and then the second book is Devil and the Device. And the reason I would recommend this duology for a sci-fi is because it is super cool and it's sort of set up, and I feel like it's a really unique concept. It basically follows our main character Andra, who is this 22nd century teen who goes into cryonic sleep along with her friends and family, intending to wake up 100 years in the future on a new planet that they are calling colonizing. But what happens instead is that Andra wakes up alone in the year 3102, and none of her friends and family are there, and she's on a planet that she's very unfamiliar with, and all the people around her after she awakens from her cryonic sleep chamber are all calling her a goddess of some kind. And so they have this skewed perception of technology, and they think that all technology is sort of some kind of magic and that she is some kind of goddess. And from there, Andra is sort of forced to help their civilization from crumbling to the ground and gets wrapped up with a bastard prince as well. And it's just a really cool and interesting situation. Has all of these sort of staple sci-fi elements like the space travel, the AIs, the technology, and just the, examination of what it means to be human. Super cool stuff, and just loved it overall. And then of course I cannot go without recommending the Sides trilogy as a YA sci-fi to gift someone or to read yourself. The series is now complete. I think the last book came out last year, and I absolutely love this series because it is a bit of a dystopian, but it actually reads more like a utopia. The first book is Scythe, the second book is Thunderhead, and then the third book is The Toll. And basically the series is set hundreds of years into the future, where humanity has conquered death, disease, destruction, and just anything that could really cut short a human life. And they've also mastered the ability to regenerate and sort of turn back human aging as well. And so people live these long, endless lives for basically forever, and they can continuously turn back their age, which is called turning a corner, and continue living and live, new lives and have babies again and all of that. And so because of this, there's no real curb to human population, and humanity hasn't managed to expand beyond Earth. And so because of that, this society of people called Sides were created. And basically they are like Grim Reapers. They go around killing a quota of people during certain time frames to make sure that the population remains, contained and can be sustained across the globe. And so the book actually follows two main characters who are sort of scouted by a Scythe to become Scythes in training and compete to become a new Scythe. And it's like this really interesting situation and sort of really, really cool imagination of what our world could be like in the future. And overall, a really great sci-fi to get you thinking about the future. Alrighty, those are all the YA books that I wanted to recommend, and now we're getting to the adult books and the various genres within that category. So the first genre that I want to recommend is fantasy. So if you're looking for a great adult fantasy to read yourself and also grab as a gift for someone, I would highly recommend the Poppy War trilogy by R.F. Kuang. So there are 3 books in the series. I don't own the last one, which is called The Burning God, but the first book is The Poppy War, and then the second one is The Dragon Republic. The reason I always recommend this series as an adult fantasy that you need to pick up is because it is just so well written and so expansive. It is pretty much a military focused fantasy, and it follows our main character Rin, who is this chaotic sort of anti-hero heroine that we follow across many years of her life as she goes from this war orphan who gets into this military academy with top marks, and as she goes into becoming a soldier for the war. The series is actually inspired by actual Asian history, specifically the Sino-Japanese Wars. So that aspect is really cool, and like the different perspectives that we get on war is just so interesting. And what's even more cool is that this book has all of the fantasy aspects. It's got magical powers, it's got higher powers, I would say, and just a really interesting examination into different types of magic and sort of a spiritual version of magic, which I thought was really cool. So if you're looking for an adult fantasy with like, really cutthroat characters as well, some betrayal, some drama, some military aspects, some really long adventures and war scenes as well, and death and destruction. I would also mention that there are some pretty triggering scenes towards the end of the Poppy War, the first book, so I'd be careful of that. But aside from that, like if you are the type of person who enjoys this type of thing and wants that added aspect of like the magic and the mystery in your fantasy, this is a great one to pick up. All right, next if you're looking for an adult sci-fi series to pick up yourself or to gift someone for the holidays, I would highly recommend the Red Rising trilogy by Pierce Brown. So this is the first 3 books in the series. It actually got a sequel series or a continuation, so there's 2 more books out so far in that sequel series, but mainly I would recommend the original trilogy because it is just so well done and just really interestingly crafted. This original series has got 3 books, so Red Rising, Golden Sun, and Morning Star. And the reason I recommend this series is because it's got all of the staples of sci-fi It's got like the space travel and the big battleships and, you know, expanding into different planets, and also an advancement of technology that is just super mind-blowing. But it's also got a bit of a fantasy aspect to it, I would say. Not that it has any magic or anything, but it does feel like in some instances like a fantasy because of the sort of politics that go on and the drama that sort of happens as well. Red Rising is basically set in a very far, far future of our world where humanity has expanded into the other planets and sort of colonized them, and society has now been split into these different colors, which are basically sort of castes of humanity. So the lowest color is reds, who are miners, and they live underground on various planets, and specifically the main character of the series, Darrow, is a red on Mars. The highest color is the golds, who are basically like almost gods to some of the other colors, and they are like the epitome of human physique, and the different colors have also like evolved to be very different from each other and have been also like slightly genetically modified as well. So the reds are like very small regular humans, whereas like the golds are like these larger than life, like 8 feet people who are much stronger and, you know, who go to war and colonize other planets and lead the charge of the empire. And so the reds sort of know the golds as their like sovereigns type thing, but Darrow is a red who wants to rise above all of this. He is a slave as well, and he wants to see a new world emerge, hence Red Rising. It's got a bit of a Game of Thrones aspect to it with all these surprising deaths and backstabbing and betrayal. So it's a really fun one if you're looking for those aspects in your sci-fi. All right, the next genre that I want to talk about is actually not a genre, but sort of genre-bending fiction. So these are a few books that sort of straddle different genres that I think are just really fun because of that. So the first one is The Beautiful Ones by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and this one is really cool because it feels like a Jane Austen novel, but it has a touch of magic to it. So it involves a bit of a love triangle in sort of high society France, but it is also set in a version of our world where some people are known to have slightly magical abilities, specifically telekinetic abilities. And so 2 of our main characters actually have those abilities, and it factors into a bit of the story, but it's really just an extra element. It really overall feels like a romance and sort of a Jane Austen novel with sort of the aspect of courting and finding a suitable husband and that kind of thing. The next genre-bending book I have is All's Well by Mona Awad, and this one is super fun because it sort of works like a contemporary novel and sort of a just general fiction novel, but it also has an added aspect of the supernatural and a bit of horror. This book basically follows our main character Miranda, who is a failed actress turned college drama professor. And Miranda is also suffering from a long bout of chronic illness ever since a stage accident when she was an actress. And so this book actually starts with Miranda wanting to put on a production of All's Well That Ends Well by Shakespeare with her drama class, but her students are bent on putting on a production of Macbeth instead. And when she is dealing with all of her chronic pain and the scorn of her faculty and her students, she ends up in a situation where she's approached by 3 mysterious strangers of the supernatural variety who give her a supernatural answer to all of her problems. But as Miranda's life starts to sort of turn around, her mental state starts to deteriorate quite a bit, and you are seeing her slow descent into what I would call madness. And it's a really interesting sort of look into her chronic pain, but also a interesting take on Shakespeare, if you will. All right, next I have some adult romances that you can definitely gift to someone for the holidays to just devour. And the first one is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. This is probably my favorite romance of the year. It was so fantastic and just so well written. This is definitely the perfect friends to lovers romance ever that I've ever read. It's done so well. It involves 2 friends, Poppy and Alex, who are basically opposites. Poppy is very extroverted and likes to travel and not really set down roots, whereas Alex is a very introverted guy, has only lived in his small town and wants to stay there and settle down and that type of thing. And so these 2 meet in college even though they're from the same small town, and for every year since meeting they've taken one glorious week of vacation together. But all of that changed 2 years ago when things went wrong on one of their trips and they stopped talking. And so all this starts 2 years later when Poppy is feeling like she wants to repair this relationship with Alex, and so asks him to go on another vacation with her in order to get this friendship back. But things have changed a lot in the 2 years that they took as a break, and the story is actually told in a dual timeline. So you're seeing the current vacation that they're on, but you're also seeing chapters from previous vacations that they've taken and how their relationship relationship was before. And so you see the progression of their relationship over like 10 years and the very like will they, won't they aspect of it. It was overall a really, really cute book and just a devourable romance and just the perfect one to read during the holidays as well, because I feel like reading about vacation during holidays is just really nice. All right, the next romance that I would definitely gift to someone for the holidays is the Brown Sisters trilogy by Talia Hibbert. This is a really fun romance trilogy and it follows 3 different sisters from the same family. They're all Browns and each one is like a different romance and a different sort of concept. So Get a Life Chloe Brown follows the old sister Chloe as she's attempting to get a life after a life-threatening experience, and she ends up falling for the superintendent at her building, who also happens to be an artist. And then Take a Hint, Dani Brown follows the second sister Dani, who is a PhD student who ends up in a fake dating relationship with the security guard at the university that she works at. And she is the type who doesn't believe in romance and love anymore, and she's obviously persuaded otherwise. And then the final book is Actor Age Eve Brown, which follows the youngest sister Eve. And this one basically follows Eve as she is thrown out by her family to go act her age, get a job, and do something with her life and figure her life out. She ends up becoming a cook at this little like bed and breakfast owned by this very prickly man. And this ends up being a bit of a enemies to lovers romance and just super cute overall. Okay, next, if you're looking for an adult thriller, I just have one recommendation for this because I don't read a lot of thrillers, but this one was fantastic, so I couldn't not recommend it, and that is The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelids. This is a great one if you're looking for a nice, popular psychological thriller to gift for someone. It is fantastic, really great twists, and really well written as well. It follows 2 different perspectives. Basically, this book follows a criminal psychotherapist named Theo Farber, and he's moving to this new psychiatric facility called The Grove, where there is a very famous patient there. And that patient is Alicia Berenson, who is this artist who had a very loving relationship with her husband for many years, until one night her husband Gabriel returns home from work and she shoots him 5 times in the face. Immediately after the crime, Alicia goes completely silent and doesn't tell anyone anything, and so she is admitted to a psychiatric unit. And so Theo is very interested in this case and wants to know why she stayed silent, what actually happened, and also help her with her recovery. If you like crime shows, if you like psychological thrillers, this is the perfect one to pick up. All right, next, if you're looking for some horror to gift to someone, I have 2 really great reads that I absolutely loved from this year. So if you're looking specifically for like a bit of a romantic sort of gothic horror, I would highly recommend Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is the epitome of a perfect gothic horror. If you like Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights, those types of stories, this is a great one to pick up. This is basically set in the 1950s in the Mexican countryside, and it follows our main character Noemi, who receives a troubling letter from her cousin, who has recently married this Englishman who owns this like manor house in the Mexican countryside. And what's troubling about this letter is that the cousin has written that her husband is like poisoning her and that there are ghosts and like people walking through walls, and she's seeing all of these crazy things in the house, and the house is haunted. And so Noemi, encouraged by her father, goes off to see her cousin and see what's what, if her cousin is actually going insane or if there's something else at play here. And she slowly gets wrapped up in the mystery of the house and also the people that live there. And there's a bit of a romance there as well, but overall a really, really great gothic horror. It has some really uncomfortable, scary things that happen, I feel like, towards like the second half. So be warned of that, but it's a really great horror if you're looking for one. And then next, if you're looking for a bit of like old school horror with like vampires, then you should definitely pick up the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. It's a fantastic, fantastic book, so well done. Set in the 1990s, it is sort of the fruition of the idea of what if you pit Dracula against your mother and what would happen there. And so basically it follows a Southern mother named Patricia Campbell. She's a stay-at-home mom of 2 kids and is really focused on them, but she has this book club that she absolutely loves of other women who are mothers in town, and together they all read these true crime novels because they're interesting and fun to read about and discuss. And sort of the inciting incident of the book is when a stranger comes to town, and he's very mysterious but also very, very charming, and everyone seems to like him. But when some kids start to go missing and some strange things start to happen, Patricia starts to suspect this man, and obviously he's the vampire in this story, and so it turns into a story of her trying to prove that he is actually a vampire in a society that wants to ridicule stay-at-home moms. Overall, a really great book, has some really great examinations of like race and privilege and like the idea that no one values domestic work, and also just a great horror as well. I love the aspect of the vampires, but also just like the really, really creepy things that happened in this book. So if you're looking for a good scare, this is definitely the one to pick up. All right, next I have some adult historical fiction that I definitely think you should check out. So the first is a bit of a star-crossed lovers historical romance, and that is The Stationery Shop by Marjan Kamali. This is sort of set in dual timelines, so present day and then also in 1950s Tehran, Iran, where these two people fall in love in a country that is facing a lot of political upheaval, and they are sort of ripped apart for reasons out of their control. And in the timeline from our current day, the main character, the girl, is sort of going off to see the man after many, many years apart. And then you sort of hear the like recounting of the past and what happened and how they got ripped apart. But it is such a heartbreaking romance if you're looking for one, and like a really interesting look into the history as well. I do think it is more focused on the romance rather than the history, so just bear that in mind, but a really beautiful book and had me like in tears by the end. The next book is The Henna Artist by Alka Joshi. This is set in the 1950s in India, in Jaipur, and it follows a woman who flees an abusive marriage and goes off to the glittering city of Jaipur and becomes a henna artist there and does henna for the wealthy women in Jaipur and learns all of their secrets and all of that. But when her younger sister comes looking for her, the main character is forced to deal with this part of her past and also take care of someone when she's mostly been on her own for a lot of years. And of course, her sister is a bit of a troublemaker as well, so some crazy things happen there. But I love this book because I really love the main character, Lakshmi. She is such a resilient main character and has had to fend for herself in a lot of ways. And also just the society that she's living in is just so interesting. Like, these wealthy women that she works for have the ability to ruin her in like a single moment by just saying something to their friends and, you know, ruining her reputation. So in that way, it was just like really, really interesting. This one has a very small romance, so it's not like super romantic if you're looking for that, but I think the history of it and like the journey of the main character is what makes it so compelling. All right, the last historical fiction that I have is Next Year in Havana by Chanel Cleeton, and this is a bit of a romance as well, and it is set in dual timelines. So the first is in 2016 in Miami, Florida, where the main character Marisol is going to Cuba to bury her grandmother's ashes after she has died. And Marisol has sort of grown up on these wonderful stories that her grandmother used to tell her about Cuba, and she has this very like romanticized idea of Cuba, but when she gets there, it's much different than she expected. And then the other timeline is set in 1958, and it follows Marisol's grandmother, Elisa, and you are seeing her as like this, you know, wealthy woman in Havana who has been quite sheltered from the political goings on in Cuba. But when a revolution is brewing and she ends up falling for a political revolutionary, things get complicated for her. This is a really beautiful book and had me in tears by the end, and like there are some really wonderful twists to it as well as you learn more about the different timelines, and it also has like a really great examination into the history of Cuba and also like the political goings on. And all right, and then the last category or genre that I have for this video is memoirs or autobiographies. So I have two that I just really love. So the first one is one that I've recommended many times before, and that is In Order to Live by Yeonmi Park. And this basically follows Yeonmi Park's journey as a child living in North Korea and born in North Korea as she attempts to escape North Korea and come to South Korea, and sort of the very harrowing journey that she went through. This one really sheds light into like the atrocities of what North Korea does and, you know, how her life was and sort of the ideological shifts that she had to make when she left. And I think it's just a really powerful story worth reading. So if you're looking for a memoir to gift to the person in your life who really likes nonfiction stories, I think this is the one to gift them. And then if you're looking for an autobiography or a memoir that is just absolutely hilarious and is just gonna put a smile on your face, I would highly recommend You Can't Be Serious by Cal Penn. I read this recently and absolutely fell in love with it. I've never felt like so seen in a book, and this is that book for me. Basically, this is the memoir for celebrity Cal Penn. He's an actor, but he also worked for the Obama administration as well, which I think is pretty cool. He's South Asian, and he's also gay, which he recently came out with just before the book went on sale. But basically, this is just Cal Penn telling his story from being a kid to, you know, now, and the various struggles that he faced as he was trying to become an actor, whether it's from his own social pressures, from his family and like extended family, to whether it was being a person of color in Hollywood in a industry that is very dominated by white people. And the hilarious but also like horrible situations that he was in because of that. And then beyond the acting and Hollywood stuff, it also goes into his political career with the Obama administration, and then later returning back to acting and Hollywood, trying to produce his own show. This is just super, super funny, and it just feels like you're having a drink with a friend when you're reading it. And I actually listened to the audiobook for the entire thing, which I highly recommend because Kalpen reads it himself, and so it feels like he's just telling his story to you, which was just a really nice added aspect to the experience. Alrighty, but those are all the books on this list of books that you should get as a gift for the bookworms in your life or for the people in your life who you want to get reading. I think all of these are just great books for people to be reading during the holidays or after the holidays, and just great ones to receive as gifts. I hope this helped you find the perfect book to get someone for the holidays, and definitely don't forget to check out Ana Luisa if you're looking for a different type of a gift for someone in your life. They have some really beautiful sustainable jewelry that you guys know I love, so yeah, definitely go use that link in my description, and they have some sales up to 25% off going right now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and go check out my Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, and TikTok in the description down below, and I will see you in my next video. So please remember that this story ain't over. Bye!